Welcome to PLZ Soccer's European Football Show. I'm Patrick Mullen, joined once again by Blair Malloy as we are on the road once again. Myself and Blair clearly don't enjoy the nice warm comfort of the studio. We're here at Ibrox, where last night's huge game for Rangers has seen them seal their top 8 in the Europa League. Blair will kick off with that game in the Europa League. What did you make of it last night?
Yes, Patrick, we've swapped Salford Keys last week for sunny Govan this week, so it's a lovely backdrop all the same. But yes, last night, a fantastic night here for Rangers under the lights at Ibrox. That win against USG, of course, sealing the top 8 and their place in the last 16 of the Europa League. I think even the most ardent, the most optimistic Rangers fans wouldn't have seen that coming before last night. I think it was 5 results they had to go for them last night, but they all came in, and Rangers find themselves missing that playoff round. A little bit of a break now before straight into the last 16.
Yeah, they'll be absolutely delighted with that. No one more than Philippe Clement. We spoke to him straight up.
I think it's a massive achievement of all squad, and it's really squad, it's not team. It's not 11 players or 14, 15 players, but all squad has been involved in that way, and it was necessary. You see it also today again with Leon King, who had to play at right fullback. Then he had to come off with a serious concussion because he could not see anymore. And Ross playing then right fullback. So we had to be very creative the last couple of months.
Some important goals for Rangers last night. The first coming from Nico Raskin, followed up by Václav Černý. Blair, Václav Černý just keeps on performing for Rangers this season.
Yeah, he's certainly become a very important player for this Rangers team, still on loan from Wolfsburg. It'll be interesting to see in the summer if Rangers try to make that one permanent, if he's a player that Philippe Clement wants to take forward with his project here at Rangers. Cyril Dessers, of course, last night, there's been so much talk of him moving on in the January transfer window. He perhaps played his best game for Rangers last night. He was integral to everything good that Rangers were doing as they move on in the Europa League, where, as we know, as of this morning, we now know they will face either Fenerbahce or Anderlecht, or Twente or Bodo Glimt. And who do you think, Patrick, they will fancy out of those 4?
I think for me it's got to be Bodo Glimt. You look at it when the tide does come around. Bodo Glimt will be in pre-season. Their campaign doesn't start until the following month. I think the one you maybe want to avoid for Rangers, Fenerbahce, for me, a really strong team at home. That home atmosphere could be quite something for the Rangers players to deal with. Yourself, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. 4 teams, of course. Rangers haven't played Bodo Glimt before. However, they have been on Scottish soil when they beat Celtic in the Conference League in 2022. You've got the likes of Jose Mourinho potentially rocking up here with his Fenerbahce side, and of course Twente. Rangers seem to have a bit of recent history with them, signing their captain Robin Proper in the summer, and of course Sam Lammers going the other way. So interesting ties to be had no matter who comes out at the end of it.
Interesting in the Europa League, and also now switching to the Champions League. We'll kick off with the Battle of Britain that was on Wednesday night. Aston Villa 4, Celtic 2. What an exciting match that was.
Yeah, we've seen one Battle of Britain last week, Patrick, and now we've had another one this week, and it really was an incredible game. I must admit, I feared the worst for Celtic when it started. 2 goals after 5 minutes. Morgan Rogers, he was absolutely on fire. Morgan Rogers, just a little side note, he pulled out Cole Palmer's cold celebration. I think everyone knows what that looks like. However, I was reading up that that's actually his celebration. The 2 of them played together in the Manchester City Academy. He thought of it first, and Cole Palmer just brought it to prominence. But he's an excellent player, and I think he showed the world stage what he's all about. Celtic did really, really well ticking back into those 2 goals from Adam Idah, but I think Aston Villa, they flexed their muscles and they just proved a little bit too much.
You mentioned it with Morgan Rogers. That Aston Villa team, well, it's sprinkled with talent, and that's something I think Aston Villa will have to get used to. We've seen it in the transfer window already. Jhon Duran, Ollie Watkins, linked with other teams, potentially confirming a move later this afternoon. And I think Unai Emery is aware of this interest, but is all for it.
And it's something as well I can feel proud of it, because they are improving. We are having players interested for another clubs, and as well paying good money for us.
Unai Emery there talking about the interest in his players. One of those players we do expect to be on the move today is Jhon Duran, heading off to Saudi Arabia and Al Nassr for a reported £77 million. It's an absolutely incredible transfer fee, and it's a move that's really split opinion, Patrick. I know it's been a hot debate whether he's making the right move for his career. I personally think when you get offered that amount of money when you're that age, what is 1 or 2 years over there to go and set yourself up for life, make yourself a bit of money. It's a short career, anything could happen, but I know you maybe have some different opinions on that.
I mean, it's a hot topic. It's a hot topic between the two of us. I'm not one to agree with the whole going over to Saudi Arabia. At the end of your career, you look at the likes of Neymar, Cristiano Ronaldo, go over there, make your money. Jhon Duran has come to the Premier League this season, 21 years of age, and is a hot talent. You see West Ham, Graham Potter, they've already put in a bid for him, and maybe that didn't, stick to Aston Villa's valuation of the player. But for me, at that age, you've got to be playing, if you have the opportunity to, stay in the Premier League, stay in the Champions League, and win trophies, and that is where you'll make yourself a big name. Jhon Duran, 1-2 good seasons, could be looking at a huge move to the likes of Real Madrid. You can't tell me a job at Real Madrid isn't going to set him up for life.
No, of course, but I think it's easy to turn down money on other people's behalf. We are not here standing.
I'd be taking the money.
Turning down that money. It's a different situation when it's offered to you. I do think it's interesting though the whole change of tact from the Saudi Pro League now though, going for these younger players, potentially moving away from these star names which we've seen that maybe haven't quite worked out. You look at Neymar, of course, he's just on the way back to Brazil, going back to Santos. He moved to Al Hilal for $98 million, I believe it was. Played just 7 games, scored 1 goal. That could be one of the biggest flops in the history of transfers. You look at guys like Jordan Henderson, who went over there, didn't settle. He was back in Europe after 6 months. Steven Gerrard, he's just parted ways with Al Ettifaq. Pardon me. So there's a lot of players who maybe go over there and it's not quite what they expect. Alan St. Maximin today, he's linked with a move back to Europe. He's going to Napoli, so it would seem. So it seems that they're changing tack. There's another move that really caught my eye today, that Al Ittihad are looking at Barcelona's Unai Hernandez. Now, he's captain of the B team, 20 years old, and he's the kind of player that in years gone by you would see Barcelona promoting into the first team, the way that Xavi did, the way that Iniesta did. Barcelona relying so heavily on these youth players, and now before they're breaking into that team, they're perhaps getting snapped up for mega money to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the whole Saudi Arabia fiasco, almost teams trying to just, the business behind it. These players are going for millions of pounds over what any European team would sell for. You move back to the transfer window here in Scotland, Celtic and Adam Idah looking to show that he is the man to lead Celtic for the remainder of the season. 2 goals for him on Wednesday night, and his manager was full of praise after the game.
Yeah, done really well. He's obviously, you can see, we're tired a little bit naturally because he's not playing so much, but those are 2 big goals for him. I thought and actually how we created the goals, I thought were very good. His movement into the box, he's made a couple of runs and then he's had to adjust and makes a great finish, and then the second one's a great team goal, and then he is where he should be in the box for the squared pass, and we make the finish. So yeah, I thought it was a handful all night, and that'll be big for his confidence.
Celtic then today is confirmed they will play Bayern Munich in the next round. What do you make of that one, Patrick? It's a glamour tie that no doubt they will be really looking forward to.
I think when you look at it, it could have been Real Madrid or Bayern Munich. Both would have been an incredible tie. I think Bayern Munich, you could say, are the slightly easier of the two of that, if you can even say that, talking about Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. Real Madrid, obviously, the current champions. Bayern Munich, though, haven't had it all their way in this Champions League. 3 defeats coming against Aston Villa, Barcelona and Feyenoord, finishing in 12th place in the Champions League group stages. And under Vincent Kompany, he'll be hoping to return that Champions League back to Munich. They haven't won it since 2020. Could they do it? I think they have a good chance, this Bayern Munich side, but for Celtic it's going to be an incredibly tricky challenge.
Yep, but definitely a great day out in an incredible stadium. I've been to the Allianz a couple of times, Patrick, and it's one of those arenas that is just a glorious sight for any football fan. We've seen it in the summer in the Euros, and I'm sure the Celtic fans, if they manage to make it over there, of course, we're still in the midst of a disciplinary proceeding of the UEFA charge. Whether they'll be able to take any away fans, those Celtic fans will be hoping they get to experience that atmosphere.
Whether they're allowed into the Allianz or not, I've heard flights are selling out. These Celtic fans, they'll be heading over and enjoying those German beers, I can assure you, in plenty of fashion in the next coming weeks. Now we'll move on to our next game. PSV 3, Liverpool 2. Liverpool obviously topping the Champions League group. They knew what they were heading into. They brought over the kids didn't manage to get the victory. What did you make of that game?
Yeah, Liverpool have been so impressive this whole Champions League campaign, and indeed domestically. They're probably the best team in Europe right now. Maybe Barcelona, maybe Inter Milan, you could say, are maybe pushing them for that, but they've just been a powerhouse so far this season under Arne Slot. And of course, they put the kids out. They knew they were already qualified. They thought they'd use this to rotate the squad a little bit. I thought it was a really interesting game. I thought it was really entertaining for one that perhaps may not mean as much as possible. The one thing of this game though, Amara Nalo, the young lad, on for his debut, sent off after 4 minutes. I can see why the referee's given it,
You hate
but
to see it.
you really do hate to see it. It's completely against the spirit of all things we love about football, and I think you'll learn from it, but I thought it was really harsh. Really harsh.
It's harsh, but that's the nature of football.
Yeah.
I'm not one. It was the same thing with Ashley Young and his boy getting on in the FA Cup. This is football. The referee doesn't know it's his debut probably. He's just thinking, for me, that's a red
have to
card.
stick to the rules,
And
yeah.
off he goes. This is the Champions League. He'll learn from it, and I'm sure he'll come back.
Another moment from that game, just quickly, Patrick. If you've not seen it yet, I urge you to go and look at that Johan Bakayoko goal for PSV. He absolutely sends Andy Robertson and Joel Quansah for the pies. He sits them both down and puts it in. It's a fantastic goal. It's one of those goals you see and just it makes you physically make a noise. You see it, just go, oh, what an incredible finish! Unbelievable.
I wish I was watching that game with you, Blair. Keeping with the English teams, Manchester City, one of the great escapes. They were down at half-time against Club Brugge, managed to come back 3-1. They've now made it out and now awaits Real Madrid.
Yeah, I think that was one of the stories of the whole Champions League campaign, that Manchester City, they've obviously struggled domestically, and they were just... It was a will they, won't they, are they going to make it into the next stage? And I think their manager Pep Guardiola outlined just how relieved he was that they managed to make it through.
Yeah, we were lost. We were lost. We were out. We were out. That is the area. When you are out, when you play, you have nothing to lose. We go through. I go through. We go forward. And the second half, I think the first half was so academic, but we missed the spark. I think Savinho helped us like all the season when he played there. Was unbelievable. So he changed the game because then after 5-10 minutes created 2 or 3 corners. Our crowd react.
Manchester City, Real Madrid awaits then. It's becoming a bit of a modern rivalry, that game. We've seen it in the past 3 years, and it's going to be set up for an absolute cracker. Two teams of absolute superstars. Even if Manchester City aren't quite at their finest, it's one not to be missed.
No, you never want to miss those types of games, but we'll all be checking in to our TVs next week to watch that one. Moving on to our next game, Lille 6, Feyenoord 1. I think we've got to speak about Lille this season. What a story. They've qualified for the top 8, coming through qualification for the Champions League. Let me just list off a few of the teams they've played and beaten. Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Bologna, and a draw against Juventus. Who expected that, Blair?
I tell you what, not me, Patrick. I absolutely did not see this one coming. I watched them in qualification and thought, they're not a bad team, they're going to be quite exciting to watch, and they have absolutely blown everybody away with the style of football they're playing. They're so exciting, they're so attacking. Jonathan David up front, we've spoken about him on this show before. I'm really surprised that a big team hasn't taken a chance on him yet. He is out of contract in the summer, but Lille have already said he's going nowhere in January. They want to hang on to him to make this Champions League tilt, and who knows how far they could go so far, because like you said, you've listed off those teams that they've beaten already. You've no idea how far they could go.
And the quality of their football is something to really watch. You look at it, 3 ties away from the final. They would be it would probably be one of the biggest underdog stories ever in the Champions League. Who do you think could knock them out?
Yeah, they're a team playing with so much confidence right now. It obviously depends on the draw and where they end up, but I think the style of football they're playing, I would say that they are definitely one to watch going into the later stages. However, a little bit of a word for Gernot Trauner, who plays for Feyenoord. He was the first player ever to score 2 own goals in a Champions League game.
Gosh.
Not the record you ever want to be stuck with. A little bit of just a word out to Gernot there.
What's worse than that? A red card in your debut or 2 own goals?
Yeah, the red card in a debut. Plenty of people have done that. 2 own goals. That's one that's going to be pub quizzes for years to come. He's the only one that holds that right now. He'll be watching that, hoping that someone else beats him.
A lot of surprises this week in the Champions League and the Europa League, and like ourselves, like many probably watching at home, there was a little trend this week, an 18-leg parlay, obviously, or an ACCA all of the teams playing at the same time. I had a little pound on night one and 9p on night two. And Blair, you know someone who was so close to booking that trip to the Maldives.
Yeah, I think the fact that all these games fall on the same night at the end of the group stages, it's just a punter's dream. Having all these kickoffs at the same time. One of my friends, if he's watching, you know who you are. 10 teams on last night in the Europa League. He got 9 out of 10, just waiting for one goal for Lyon to scoop £2,500. A real sore one. I don't think he'll be watching Lyon games anytime soon.
I can guarantee you that one for sure. Finally, before we leave you this week, that is the end of the Champions League and the Europa League group stage. It's the first season with this new format. It's divided opinions. Blair, I'd love to know your thoughts.
I'm all for it, Patrick. I think that, as you said, this has definitely been a format that has divided opinion between people who liked the way it was, who were quite happy with how it was going, to people who are quite happy to try something new. I'll be honest, before it kicked off I was sceptical. I thought, why do we need more games? I can't follow it from a professional point of view. It's very hard to try and prepare, as you'll know, when you don't know who's playing anyone. It's almost impossible to try and keep up with the sheer amount of games and the sheer variables of who's going to be playing who. But I almost quite enjoyed that. I would get home at night, I'd turn the TV on, and almost certainly I'd be surprised by one game that I didn't know was happening. And it seems like we've had more bigger games. I understand the criticisms, it's kind of just like a Super League in disguise, but I think it's provided a lot of really good games. I think it's provided a lot of excitement, and even down to last night, Manchester City were out at half time. So I think this argument that the big teams were guaranteed to get through doesn't really stand up, but I do understand where the critics come from.
I'm divided on the whole new format. I think it's a good example of don't fix something that's not broken. The Champions League has worked for years in its current format, was well loved, and while it has delivered some incredible games, given smaller teams more away days for their fans, more home games, extra revenue, as you said, the big teams were favoured. I think it's fair to say Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain, you look at those teams, these are teams that have struggled throughout this whole league phase and have still managed to make it through. I think in years gone by, if there's only 4 or 5 games that you're playing, if you lose 1 or 2, you could be in trouble in that league phase. It hasn't happened. I think it will be here to stay, but for me, I'd like to see it return to the old days.
Yep, it's hard to argue with that, Patrick, but like I said, I do enjoy the variables and do enjoy all the different games. And of course, let us know what you think in the comments. Are you happy with the new Champions League format, or would you like to see it return back to group stages with a little bit more tension, perhaps?
I hope you guys get involved and let us know. We will be back here on the European Football Show on the week commencing the 11th and 12th of February, dissecting those first legs of the UEFA Champions League playoffs. So myself and Blair, thanks for joining us here on PRZ Soccer's YouTube channel and the European Football Show. We'll see you next time.